So let's take a quick rundown of this Ouellette microscope. So we've got the power on switch. We've got the slider to control the amount of light that is being put through. The other way the light is controlled to go up into the optics is using the iris diaphragm, which is right there. Okay, so close that. Actually, that's closed. Now that's closed. Right, and if we can see through the top, let me move this turret out of the way. Open and closed. All right. To control the actual slide are these controls right here. This is the coarse focus. So this moves it very fast, very quick. And this is the fine focus. So it moves the stage just a little bit at a time. Whenever you're starting out with a microscope slide, you always want the 4x objective. That's the smallest. And typically what you'll find, for example, I'll go ahead and put a microscope slide in. You want the stage to be all the way up to begin with. And that should be close to being in focus. Okay, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. If we look further out on the microscope, what we see is that this turret right here can be moved. And so just unscrew this. For example, now I can use the microscope like this. If you prefer to use the microscope like this, that's fine too. This is nice too because basically if somebody's with you, you can show them, you can move this towards them. But one thing you definitely want to do is you don't want this to be kind of floating around. You want to tighten that down. All right. So now that's tightened down. Now we're looking at the eyepieces right here. There's two things to know about that. One is we all have different distances between our pupils, which means that the distances between the eyepieces will vary depending on who you are. Okay, so what you want to do is when you've got the light coming up through the microscope, go ahead and put your eyes down and then essentially move these out so that it's in a comfortable position where, so right now I am seeing one bright circle. If I close it a little bit, I see kind of a bright circle, but then in the middle, I see something that looks kind of like this. Okay, so that's not what I want, so I need to pull it out just a little bit more. And the other thing is, it depends on the distance between your eyes and the actual eyepiece. If you're up too close, it'll look really weird. If you look far, it'll look really weird. So you need to kind of, like for me, this is perfect. I have a little bit of distance to move around. I can even move a little bit left to right. Okay. Now, I wear glasses when I read. I have two different, I have one eye that's weaker than the others, which my glasses takes care of. And one thing this microscope does is it has two independent focusing on the eyepieces. So it's really nice. So I don't have to use my eyepieces. What I can do is I can go ahead and, let's see, let me find that E. So I put the slide down here, the letter E. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and find that E. There we go. And okay. Now I'm wondering why it's not on the screen right now. There we go. So right now what we see on the screen is the letter E. And when I'm moving my camera around, we can see, right, that the E is moving around because it's just like putting your eyeball in it, and if you were turning around, it's doing the same thing. Okay, when I'm looking in here, my E is actually upside down and backwards, and that's due to the optics of the lenses. Okay, so I'm seeing down here upside down and backwards, but on the screen, so this is the way I'm seeing it right now. If I want to see it right side up, I just need to move my camera around so that it's like that. Either way, it doesn't matter. The other thing to know about this particular camera and what I see in my field of view, right now I see the E. I could, in this big circle, I could put 3 or 4 E's going across. But on here, because the sensor is so small, it's essentially blown up. So this is, with my 4x objective, this is the smallest my E is going to look. And that's okay. That's what our hardware and our software allows us to do. Okay? So when I'm looking down here then, compared to up there, right now, since I have two different eyes, which was the point just a moment ago, I got a little distracted with the E on the screen, right, is that what you want to do is kind of get these midway both of these not all the way down in and not all the way out, but about midway. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and look in. I'm going to close my left eye, and I'm going to look in, and with the focus knob, right, I'll just use the fine focus, I'm going to get it so that where it looks really perfect with my right eye. Okay? Perfect. And now I'm going to do the same thing with my left eye, but instead of using the focus, I'm going to do this up here. So I'm going to close my right eye, and then I'm going to look in my left, and I'm going to use just the eye. There we go. Nice and focused for my left eye, using this right here, so that when I open up both of my eyes, ta-da, I can see things very well. Okay, so now this is totally set up for me. If somebody else were to come with different eye prescription, with different pupils, they're going to have to move everything around, right? So just be aware of that. But so basically, I am ready to go. I know how to turn on my microscope. I know how to let not only how much light to go through from the light source itself, but also using the iris diaphragm, how I can close that off, right? And so even though I closed this off tremendously, if you look at the screen, you see that there's actually, it's still really, really bright. And that's because I've got this fully on auto. The software that came with the microscope camera, I recommend, at least just starting out, just letting it do its thing. You don't have as much control over it, but like right now, it does keep changing things so that ideally you'll get a nice image. Okay, so, and whenever you are starting to focus on something, always start with the 4x objective with this stage all the way up. And since I've got it in focus, let's just look at the distance between where it is now and where I started out with. Because remember, I started with it totally up top, right? So you want the stage as high as it can go to start out with the 4x. And so if we just compare, right, so that wasn't that far at all. And if we look at, right, so that makes a big difference. And if we look at the computer screen again, for the E, since it's so big, even though it's completely up at top, I can see that quite easily, right? And so if I just look at the screen, and I'm looking right now, and we can see that it is now in focus. So when you take an image for your lab report, right, that would be a perfect image of an E. So the way to do that then is to just go up, and this button right here, where it says snap, just go ahead and click that, snap, and then you'll see that this tab over here is now the image. Okay? So if we zoom out a little bit, what we'll see is that right there, this right here, this says video, is the live stream. So if I move this, it moves. If I go back to this tab right there, right, I can move this and nothing is happening. So this is the image then that I would want, and then basically I just need to go File, Save As, and I like saving things as a PNG, portable network graphic. So just save that, and that should be available then for you to upload into your lab report. So in terms of getting an image with this camera and using the software to just grab an image, send it off, and use it for your lab report, it's really quite easy. And that's one of the things that I like about this setup as well. Okay, so just kind of a reminder here, when you're starting out, always start with 4x with the stage all the way up. Once you get it in focus, let's go back to live view. Once you get it in focus, then you can go to the next. Right, now we're seeing that E has gotten a lot bigger. And then once you've got that in focus, you can then go to the next one. And so what we're seeing with the microscope is we're seeing the ink feathering out at the edge there. Okay, so that's the basic of just getting to know and how to use your microscope. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and make a few short videos looking at some of the individual slides.